Thank you so much for joining us today for Margaret Craig's Artist Talk. Margaret Craig has been an artist in residence here at the Morgan for the last couple of weeks, but she also taught here over the summer to teach some of the techniques that she's been working with in paper making. Received a degree in biology, secondary education, a BS in art, and an MA in painting from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She received her MFA in printmaking from the University of Texas at San Antonio. An innovator in printmaking techniques, she invented tar gel pressless etching. She is included in many public and private collections, including the Library of Congress. She is Professor Emeritus of Printmaking and Paper at the Southwest School of Art in San Antonio, Texas. Her original biology degree has been a major influence in the visual bird, 4 cats, 1 spastic puppy, and a mess of grown stepchildren. Her original college degree in, oops, sorry, that looped back. Oh, that is the, okay. The work is rooted in symbiotic ecostructure we all precariously live in and involve an elaborate, possibly excessive process that recycles the original post-consumer paper and plastic through several art forms and media, including acrylic, watercolor, printmaking, papermaking, and installation sculpture. Please help me in welcoming Margaret Craig.
What you see here, I always, okay. What you see here is kind of my alternate ego right now. This is the creature from the Bleached Lagoon, and I'm actually inside of this and interacting with people. That someone doing this might wind up doing paper. So I'm hoping to kind of circle around to that. I am a printmaker, and I have been doing that for a very, very long time. But I'm also pretty not by the rules person. So I started making etching prints by casting them in acrylic, which so then I make stretchy etchings. And with the stretchy etchings, I use support structure for them, as well as using a lot in my work. This is actually an installation of sort of an environment for the creature from the Bleached Lagoon. And I've never actually shown together with him, because he goes out and like interacts with people and whatever. And at some point, maybe I'll get the 2 installations going on together. But this is just to give you an idea. This is kind of the most recent work, thinking about climate change, thinking about, bleached reefs and all that. So now we're going back to, this is a installation, the bleached reef, not the bleached reef, the great trash reef. You can see it's not bleached at all. It's kind of this is an alternative silo space. So it was really fun to do an installation there, but I've been doing this installation for a while. And let's see. To take it on the road and get it out of the gallery. And so that was a new challenge for me. And because I think sometimes as artists, when we're showing in galleries, we're just kind of preaching to the choir a lot. I wanted to get it out of that space. And this is an image from Luminaria, which is a light festival in San Antonio. From, was it 2016, I think. So that's going from the static installation to something that I'm moving. And then I have a video is just about a minute long of me doing this performance. And this is called The Albatross. And it relates to Coleridge's poem, The Albatross. We've always heard the expression, the sailor killed the albatross, so then he had to wear the life-size albatross around his neck, because he did this horrible thing. That was his punishment. So this I am as a human being creature with a life-size plastic albatross around my neck with a belly full of plastic, walking around and carrying this alternative evolution trash reef a la Scrooge's Marley's ghost in Scrooge, so that we are thinking about, getting an environment. So that's kind of where it went. And I did that a number of places, kind of just pop-up performances. Now, at the same time, this is probably 2 years ago. This is Lightscape San Antonio. So it's another lighted festival. This one is not a performance. It's one of those things of art over the holidays. I was commissioned for this. And you can see these consumer plastics and these tar gel etchings and various mixed media and other thing going on. So you can get kind of an idea of this installation too. So is getting back to a wall installation. So taking those lanterns and then actually installing them on the wall, as we have these little outgrowths growing out and the cords become, part of the piece, because when you're doing lighted art, a lot of times it needs those cords. So you may as well make them part of it. And at the same time as doing that, I was also doing this, and this is a lot more of traditional print work, or even my non-traditional print work, mixed with plastic. So these get framed. And so they're kind of little wall installations, but they've been contained in a frame. And you can see, obviously, print methods, some on paper, some on, some that are the tar gel etchings, I can tell. And straws, and even plastic wrappers that have been manipulated with a heat gun. And this one is called, I actually wrote down my titles here. So garlic bag with cat. So there's a little bag in here that was filled with plaster, and then the cat. So I'll pick out with these titles a couple of things that's going on in there. And then this one is clear arm fortified. So there's probably a fortified bit of label in there somewhere. But again, you can see, so this is the integration of both the three-dimensional plastic stuff and paper. And as a printmaker, I've always done stuff on paper, as well as the tar gel stuff, the dimensional stuff. And then kind of hold the phone, all of a sudden, COVID happened, and our person who was doing the papermaking department quit because she had kids and she didn't want to deal with and I inherited the paper studio, the paper and book art studio as well. Really, I need to be able to do it and really start playing with it. And as a printmaker, you can make a basic sheet, but I knew someone had said that you can screen print. And we had it's an ex-Army group that goes to combat paper, where they were making paper out of their uniforms, and then I had helped them get, some screens together or whatever for that. This was a number of years ago, but I hadn't really seen how it was done or whatever. And so screens, took me a while to figure out that it's much better to take the screens off the frame to use them. And I'll have examples of that at the back. But this was some of my first attempts at doing it, and it was just so beautiful and ethereal. And since I inherited the department, I now had access to doing it. Not that I wouldn't before. And I think Beck Whitehead, who's well-known papermaker who had been running the department for years, really kind of wanted me to get into it. But at the time I was also doing these plastic cast prints, and, I was just, because I didn't really see that there was something to be making paper. And until I really started doing this, I was like, oh. And these came out to me, and they were so, just beautiful and ethereal. And I'm like, wow. So if you look at these, and then the thing is that you're layering cellulose, which is what's happening as you're building up dirt in the ground. And you start to think about trash from the past, as well as trash in the present. So if you look at this, a lot of the stuff in here, that's all the screen printing paper pulp. And then you'll see these other little bits and pieces that are sort of little abstract etchings. And I paint with my plates. So I make elements, I make, plates that I reuse for many different things. You can see these guys down here, which are, we've got an old pipe, probably from the 1700s. We've got some Roman glass. So I started thinking about what are the layers that are going on, both past trash, which was maybe in a sense a lot less noxious than our plastic trash. So here's just another one of those kind of images, as I'm beginning to really realize that you can layer with paper just like you do with printmaking. And I always did a lot of layers for my printmaking, and paper just allowed me to continue that. And the fun thing is that I will make and dry a sheet of paper and then say, oh, I want some more stuff on it. And I'll re-soak the sheet, put down some methyl cellulose pulp on top of that. And that's how I kind of get a little effect here with stuff that was underneath and then layering on top. And I like that layer because that's the geological layers of how geology was laid down, how dirt is formed with forests dropping leaves, how, and then our trash becomes part of these layers. So that's where I'm kind of interested in that. And then, so then this is another layered piece. And in this one, thinking a little more representationally about those layers. So if you look now, I've got fossils that are going on in there, along with my hyphae and roots and leaf skeleton type things that I've included in there. I think that's a broken arrow. So he's doing broken arrowheads, a little pediment, broken pediment. And then as we get to the top layers, you can see the little plastic things that bread ties, an image of that, and then a image of bottle cap. So, and here's another one along that line, and you can see more fossils, stuff under the ground, and then thinking in layers, there's a little Roman trash. And then on the next layer, once again, I have those same analysis, those same two actually little prints here. And this one actually has the inclusion of something else, which is space junk. So sometimes you're using representations of things, and sometimes I'm using the actual things, which is where the plastic but the sheer thought of our polluting with so many satellites and everything up there, there's things that we won't be able to leave the ground at some point. Broken in the image as well. So these are very recent. This is, obviously I made this piece of paper here, and I've layered lots of different kinds of paper in there, different, just kind of slapping on different colors because I had leftover pulp from my students. And the screen prints layered on there, and then the etchings, and this sort of going down the whole kind of a well situation where you have these layers. And finally, I had the fun idea of like leaving the opening there, and I've stuck all the kind of real plastic bits in the bottom of the well, as people, it's a little trash pit. So and then there's sort of new lives forming, as this trash pit stuff evolves. So we have, I think this spinner is from a firework, and one of those from alcohol. And I tend to, where I go, kind of scope out the street for trash. So when I was in Berlin doing a residency there was a lot of broken lighters in the street. So I brought that back. And this is just a little bit of a detail of that central bit and the plastic that's in there, as well as you can see my other love. I have always done marbled paper, and I feel like it's pulling a print off water. And of course, really addictive to do. And of course, I'm using these things that a lot of non but it started as a craft. It was originally the Southwest Craft Center. So there was a big tradition of craft in there, which is why they had paper making as well as ceramics, and fibers and weaving, and small metals and jewelry. So this is another very recent one, and the base that it's on is a handmade sheet of paper on top of, to such an extent that you almost hardly see that. And then I wanted real white borders, so I actually collaged my piece of paper on top of, one of your standard white, I think this is a watercolor paper, cotton rag watercolor paper, that for building up some of these surfaces. And once again, I always say I like to make work that rewards people for looking at it. So these are, more pediment again. What am I calling this one? This one's, it's a cross section of the dig. So I guess I've watched Time Team and a lot of, and I'm really interested in that. So we've got our alternative evolutions, and mostly sometimes art, I think, is just like making up an excuse. Your story as an artist, making up an excuse to do what you want to do anyway. But trained in graduate school that and I trained my students that too. It's like, you got to think about it. You got to think about it in contemporary art and where it fits in that. And here's just another one of those very recent paper collage pieces. I might have even printed that etching print with the hydraulic press, because if you use water-based ink, you can actually almost put your inked plate on there and have it transfer to your paper. So you can print etchings with a hydraulic press, which of course, being a printmaker, I have approached paper in sort of a printmakery way because, that's what I do. So lots of collaging on here. I've got a Egyptian bird that was off a little figurine that I made that from. Here's another broken arrow. Oh, I also was able to get a couple lithostones with old images on them. So I was able to figure out how to print those old images onto bits of paper. And so there's vintage signage of how Xeroxes in there. So I'm kind of a materialist. I like to, obviously, as you can see, the whole kitchen sink, I dabble in everything. So, and here's just a little detail of what's going on in there. This is a little three-dimensional piece, and I have some examples of that back on the table, and I'll show you that later. But this, you can see that I've cut out and shaped. So that's that kind of thing. And let's see. And then because you all do book arts here, I also wanted to show you that I also do books. This was at a show in Brooklyn this past spring. And we went back and forth with the venue. The gallerist was trying to find, originally we were going to do a residency on one of the Governor's Island, and then that fell through, and we wound up in a big space in Brooklyn, but it was to be an installation. But I'm coming from Texas, so I decided I would make these book boxes that could install, and then I wound up coming out for the show and doing the performance of the creature and having it displayed there. So turns out I didn't have to make it in, which basically this was. But this one is Cathra Takes on New York City. So a really tongue-in-cheek and kind of fun thing, but also influenced by old images, old art. As we went and researched at the Historic Society of New York. So those images are sort of there as well. And here's just a little closer up view, as you can display it in lots of different ways. It's a box with more of my little tar gel creatures on it. And then at the same time, I think part of this image was used to advertise this talk. And so these, and they're just installed on a wall. So just, it's an installation on a wall, which is really kind of fun to do. There's a real detail of these critters. And some of these are actually, some of them are tar gel, what I call tar gel etchings. Basically, that's the cast acrylic prints where I've inked up an etching plate and then I put an acrylic medium on it, and it makes that stretchy etching that I was talking about. So that's that, and that's that. But then I got into another totally kitschy thing, which was, on, probably still on YouTube, paint pouring. And oh my gosh, I got to do that because, everything is as eye candy. And so these are actually paint skins. So I pour them on a repurposed plastic tray from, this kind of thing. When someone goes to the grocery store and buys a vegetable tray, I try and, snag both the cover, which is really good for making lanterns, and the base, which is really good for doing paint pouring. And then on top of that, then I etch on them because they are really, really flexible and quite thin. And so yet another reason Margaret is not using paper, which is kind of funny. And but they are stretchy as well. And then we're coming back to, at the same time, here's my and I'm performing with the band Buttercup that you can see here, and this is the creature, and the creature likes music, and so he goes around and he dances, and he also has people feed him single-use plastic bottles and talks about the ocean more because, you know, he needs to eat. And after all, he is a monster, right? So, and then this was also going on in Luminaria, and I'm in here, and I had no idea. This is little piece that's going across the United States, a puppetry piece. There's a person in there, and about she's a Syrian refugee girl, but I can see out about this much in front of me. And there she is. She's like patting the creature's head, which is, I just thought that was so adorable. And there's me and little Amal just this year. So we're back to the creature. So you can see I have a lot of aspects of my work. I haven't done sculpture with paper yet. That'll probably happen sometime in the future. But at the same time, with these, being as they're plastic, they're easy to get out, and it's not delicate at all. And so that is the creature. And then I have a final video for you all to see, which is about 10 minutes, and it's me getting into the creature and getting out of it. And the creature is a lot of kitty litter containers. So he's and tar gel etchings, and he's from the bleached reef. So it's kind of a quiet, calm color, and with the bleached reef. So so and there's no volume with this, but he makes a lot of noise. So there's this the whole time. Totally and completely appropriate on the waterfront. So this is on the Brooklyn waterfront. And you can see they're preparing for me to get out. And the feet always get tangled up. So I'm like constantly kicking those feet out. And I'm making sounds at the same time. I have a my cell phone there acting as a microphone, and then I have a Bluetooth speaker in the back. So he sounds really obnoxious as well with, "Feed me, I'm so hungry. Feed me plastic bottles." And there's probably an image of them on this video feeding me bottles. I'll get that arrow.
Suddenly you just said he, and I thought,
I don't know. It could be a she. It could be a she, but I think I think of him as a yes. So it's funny, and I can get out of got a little digestion. Yeah, so he was running up and accosting people on the street. Well, there's a lot of space in there. So I think I had a trash bag in there with me. But what's really funny is like I went and did this at an art and music festival in Kansas, Salina, Kansas. And the whole time, so it's like there was one bottle that went down the gullet. I'm carefully sneaking it out to my husband from the side, so the next kid can feed me. So there was a grocery store across the street. But I think a lot of times people in New York, they can be very most people went by, they were pretty engaged, and there's a smile on their face. It's also quite heavy. So when I was doing the most recent performance, I had my knee like really go out, and it's been giving me grief ever since. So I have no trouble getting out and performing in that, but standing up and giving an artist talk is never. Although we love to talk about our work. So I don't know, not too much in there. I mean, it's always, I'm always nervous about getting it on, and is everything going to work right? And you can't see it because this is daylight. It was originally conceived as a luminaria piece. So it all lights up, and it's like, are the lights going to work? Is this going to work? That I have anxiety about that, but it's one of those things like you hide yourself under makeup, you hide yourself under something, and so you don't really have that same kind of anxiety. Oh, is it going to work? Is it going to, like, when putting the albatross together, I was very concerned about that because was I going to be able to make it work? I hadn't done this before. I hadn't dragged a bunch of art on my back. And I think there was definitely more anxiety with that one. I'm a little more exposed on that one. I've got that whole thing tied to a corset that goes around my waist. He's actually got one of those, it's just a backpack harness that goes over, so it's a different kind of a thing. I don't know if that gets to your question or not, but and I actually transport him in my car, and so you saw the head comes off, and the back end of the tail comes off, and the other part I kind of roll up in a tarp and like twisty tie it so that it's a piece that we can pick up and handle and put in the back of my car. So